Hi guys, Samantha from Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you a fun technique that creates a kind of raw gemstone effect. So here is a bracelet that I have done using some rondelles I had left over from a tutorial I did a while back. I will leave a link to that tutorial in the description below the video. If you are on Patreon, you might actually have access to this tutorial, so be sure to check the link and see if you can see it, and then you could create this bracelet. But today I'm going to be using this type of stone that I created a while back as a test. Now this is not supposed to look like any real stone in particular, it's just supposed to look like a pretty stone essentially. You could take any type of realistic stone you wanted, such as rose quartz, blue calcite. I've got a bunch of different gemstone tutorials free on YouTube and on Patreon and Etsy that you could check out. So if you don't want to use this stone, you could always check those tutorials out. But for today we're going to be using that. So first thing is you're going to want to have mixed up that colour recipe that I supplied in the supplies, where it's like 1 part ecru, 20 parts white and 15 parts translucent. And this is what we're going to use to form the veins. Then you're going to need to roll out about 20 parts of translucent for each of these colours, so 40 in total, and you're going to tint the translucent with alcohol ink. And the alcohol ink that I'm using is Adirondack turquoise and bottle green. And then you just mix those together so you get these nice tinted colours. Now putting those to the side, I want them to cool down, since when you mix them together they will get a little bit warm, and I want to take this and I want to mix liquid clay into it because we want it nice and sticky. So any white or translucent liquid clay will work. I'm using Kato, but again, any type will work. Now this gets a bit messy, so if you want to put gloves on, you can. I would not recommend doing this in your pasta machine, just because you're going to end up making a bit of a mess of your machine if you do that. Instead, I would recommend using a roller, at least until you get the clay to the point where the liquid clay is not leaking out anymore. So just roll it through like that. There you can see the liquid clay there has leaked through. And that's fine when you're using a roller, but if you're using it in the pasta machine, you will end up, you'll just end up making a bit of a mess. And then you're just going to continue adding that liquid clay until it is quite sticky and goopy. It's supposed to be almost like a semi-liquid. And I'll show you what I mean when I'm done. Okay, and here it is. So you should be able to stretch it like so. I mean, it should be really, really sticky, as you can see here. And this is going to be perfect for us. So you can see there how soft that is. So put that to the side, and you might want to clean your hands after that because that's going to have gotten a lot of liquid clay all over you. Now we can move on to moulding these pieces. So all you're going to do is you just want to form them into a cylinder. And you'll repeat with the green one or whichever other alcohol ink colour you have. Now keep in mind, you do not necessarily have to use the alcohol ink colours that I have used in this tutorial. Any nice bright colour will work. Two anyway. Okay, just getting that into a cylinder. I don't want to work with it too much because the harder it is, the better it is for us. Then you're going to take a blade. I'm just going to wipe that down so it's nice and clean. Make our lives easier. Okay, and just start by chopping pieces, like so, from that cylinder. Okay, and then just continue chopping that up so you get lots of little bits and pieces. And that should be enough for the moment. Now take that and try not to let them stick together. Don't press on them or anything like that, and just pop them to the side. and repeat with this green one here. There we go. Put that to the side, separate from the green one, from the blue one. Then you can bring this over, and you want to split that in two. And I'm going to bring the blue over, and what I want to do is I just gently want to try to separate these pieces out. Don't press them, you just want to kind of be rolling them in your fingers to separate them out. It doesn't have to be perfectly separated, you just don't want them in huge clumps. Okay, that will do for the moment. Okay. Then take this and just break off little pieces. Like so. Now, because this clay is soft, it's much more likely to go between the pieces of clay rather than mix into it or squish it. It's kind of like what would happen with paint, but it's not going to do it perfectly, so we need to kind of help it along with it. So I'm just very gently going to press that together, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to just chop this up, and this will just make those blue pieces smaller, and we'll get rid of large chunks of them. So there's the one for the moment. Repeat that with this green one here. There we go. Now we want to put these two together. So the way to do that is to just chop off these pieces, and when you do that, make sure to keep them separate, because they will stick to each other. Just chop them up into small pieces, again making sure that they are separate. And you'll repeat that with the blue, and then you'll kind of mix them all together. Just again, making sure to keep these separate, because you can see how they will stick together. So chop them as small as you can, making sure that each piece stays separate from the next. Put them to the side if you have to, and repeat with the blue, and then pop them all together. And I'll show you how to do that as soon as I've chopped all these up. Alright, then you're just going to take these and you're just going to pop them all together to one piece again. And then you might need to chop a few times again just to get it mixed in together properly, and that will reduce our pieces down a bit more, which is nice because we want them to be little flecks. I thought that the pieces in here were a little large when I made it. Okay. And so just pop them all in like so. Okay. Take that, press it together, and then I would recommend chopping it at least one more time, just to get those pieces of clay, or the colours anyway, just to get the colours mixed in enough that it doesn't look like you've got big patches of green and big patches of blue. But again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. I mean, it looks pretty good as it is, but I would just recommend chopping it at least once more. I might even do it twice more, we'll see. Okay, and I think that is enough. I only chopped it one more time. So now I need to press this together. And you'll notice that it is very soft at the moment. And that's mostly because of the white. Translucent chips aren't that soft, but it is pretty soft at the moment. So now I'm going to just cut that, and there you can see that's pretty squishy. Just going to chop that like so. And then roll it in your hands. Like so. Now it's very sticky at the moment, but that's fine. Just deciding if I'm happy with the size of that. I think I might want to make it just a touch smaller. So I'll just take that off and roll it in my hands again. And you want them all to be about the same size. You don't have to be completely accurate with that, because when we get to the whole sanding procedure, it's going to knock off quite a bit of clay. So don't worry about making them all exactly the same size. It actually looks more interesting if they're not all the same size. It adds to that kind of raw cut effect. And I just want you to roll out a whole bunch, and I'm going to pop them into the freezer after that, and then we can mould them into the size for our rondelles. Because right now it's just way too sticky to work with otherwise, and this one is still too big. Okay, so just roll out a whole bunch and then pop them into the freezer for probably around half an hour, and then I'll show you how to form them into rondelles. Okay, and here they are. I've kept them on this cold tile because they will stay nice and cold while I'm doing this, because the clay still has liquid clay in it and it's still going to be quite sticky, so just bear that in mind. So now I'm just going to take these, and I'm going to take an acrylic block, just going to press down like so, and that's all you need to do. Now this is not a pretty rondelle, but again, doesn't really matter because you're going to be sanding a lot of those edges off towards the end of the project, and so the shape really does not matter that much. You just need it in a basic rondelle shape. Other than that, you don't really need to fuss with it too much. Okay, and so I just take each of these off of the tile. I press down to make a rondelle. I do go around and maybe round off these edges just a touch, and then I put it back on the tile, and I'll bake it like that. Fingerprints, you don't have to worry about it. Everything you see on the outside here will get sanded off because we need to reveal the pattern underneath, so you really do not need to worry about making it all clean and tidy. It would just be a waste of time at this point. Your time is going to be spent later on sanding off a bunch of it. Now that brings up a quick point that I do want to just point out now. You don't have to have a rotary tool for this project. You can hand sand the grooves that we're going to be making later on, but it will take a huge amount of time and effort, so I would highly recommend having a rotary tool for this project. If you don't have a rotary tool, I would probably avoid this project. And I'm pretty sure I said that in the description. I'll make sure to put that there, because this project is heavily reliant on a rotary tool. So I'll just continue squishing these down, and when I'm done with them, I will put them into the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and then when they come out, we can get to sanding them. Okay, now while it's in the oven, I just want to talk about what you're going to need to do this project. When you get a Dremel or any rotary tool, generally you will get some attachments, and I generally have to make my own sanding attachment. So if you can find one that has a sanding attachment, that would be great. But generally you get kind of these little stone disc things, and then I cut out a little circle of sandpaper, and I generally will go with about a 400, and just pop some glue. So let me just grab some glue quickly. Nice strong glue. Super glue is generally the best option here. So I'm just going to grab some super glue and brush a decent amount on here. Now this takes around half an hour to dry properly, so you want to do that while that stuff's in the oven if you haven't done it already. And then you want to position that just about in the middle. Press down nice and firm. Okay. And you have a little bit of time to position it as you want. And then just set that back to dry, and that is going to be your sanding attachment. So just thought I would go over that quickly. Okay, and so here they are out of the oven. And so you can see I've set up the Dremel over here, and I've got it away from my workstation because this produces a lot of dust and I don't want it anywhere near the clay. So I'll just make sure to get rid of the clay. There we go. Now you're going to need some glasses. Safety glasses are always a good idea because this sandpaper, although we've stuck it on well, could possibly shoot off, and you just don't want your eyes to get caught by that. You also want to have some sort of a dust mask on, because again these produce a lot of dust and you do not want to be breathing that in, so make sure you have something to cover your nose and mouth. So I'm not going to be able to talk a lot because I'm going to have the mask on, but you're basically able to see what I am doing. I'll pause the Dremel every once in a while and show you what I'm doing. So I'll just pop on those glasses and the mask. Okay. Okay, so here you should be able to see what is happening here. So I'm not sure if you can catch it very well, but if I twist it around, hopefully you can see there that they are there's been sanded at an angle. So I have one angle here, 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 and here. And so you want to do that the entire way around until you have essentially sanded off all of the top area. And then you want to sand the front part, which I will show you in a minute. So now I'm not going to talk again. I want to show you the entire process of sanding this bead, but I'm not going to be talking, so I apologise for that. Okay, so I'm just going to continue sanding around the edges, and when I am done I'll show you how to sand these front parts. Okay, and there we go. All the edges have been done. Okay, so now we want to sand the front, and well, both of these flat sides essentially. So again, pop on the mask. There we go. So you should not be able to see any fingerprints anymore. The Dremel is going to leave scratch marks, but I quite like that because then it still looks like hewed stone. And I'm actually really happy with how that looks. Now I have got a total of 10 pieces here that I have baked. I wanted to see how they look before I bake the rest. And I'm going to cut all of those essentially, and then when they're done we're going to just pop some wax on this just to bring out the colour and get rid of all of these little white spots that might be on it. Now keep in mind, this is why I said that you need to have a Dremel. You can see how long it took to do it with the Dremel. It's not that long, but considering that it's a rotary tool, you can imagine how long hewing each of these, or sanding each of these essentially, is going to take if you are using something like hand sandpaper. So unless you're really dedicated, I would definitely use a rotary tool only. So anyway, I'm going to continue sanding those, and then when I am done I will show you the results. Okay, and here they are. So you can see it's quite an improvement on what they looked like before, in which case this is what they look like. So they still have that raw organic effect, but they don't look sloppy. And this is why I was saying not to worry about the shape of the rondelles and whether there were fingerprints, because they all get sanded off in the process. So now before we put anything like Renaissance wax or buffing, or do any buffing, we want to drill them. And the reason we want to drill them first is because the drill creates dust, and it just, you handle it a lot, and so if you put Renaissance wax on, it will cause it to dull, so you want to drill them first. So I've got a pin drill here, and I've just found the middle of my rondelle, and now I'm going to push down like so. There we go. Just make sure to drill through a few times, just to make sure that that hole's nice and clean. There we go. And I want you to repeat with all of those. Okay, there we go. Now you're going to grab your Dremel tool, and I've taken it off of its holder, and I'm going to be buffing it now. So I buff them first, then I apply the Renaissance wax, because the buff gets rid of any dust residue that might be on them. So I'll show you. There we go, so that got rid of a lot of the dust that was left on it. Then you want to take some Renaissance wax, and a decent amount of it, and I want you to rub that over the surface. And this is not going to remove any scratches or anything like that, it's just going to bring out the colours, and it's actually going to highlight the scratches to a certain degree, and I really like that because it just looks like an organic stone. If you don't like the scratches, you'll want to use a lower grit of sandpaper with the Dremel. 1000 grit will probably work. There we go, and that will just give it a slight sheen, as you can see. Okay, and then you want to repeat with all of those. Okay, so there we go. Now we're ready to begin our stringing process. So I've got a piece of hemp here, and it's this nice tan kind of colour. And so I've got a few bone beads off to the side here, and I have decided, let me bring it over, that I want to use these ones. And now I get most of my bone beads off of Fire Mountain Gems, so you can have a check for a bunch of them there. But keep in mind that I bought these a while ago, so they might not necessarily be in stock at the moment. Okay, and so I've got a little rondelle, then one of these ones might even be a nut bead. I have a bunch of wooden and nut beads, and I really like using those for these projects. Now if the hemp gives you trouble, you can always just wrap some tape around it or use some super glue to get it to work. You also need to be careful because you need to make sure that your bead's hole is large enough. So this one is going to give me trouble even if it is covered in glue or something like that. So there we go, that's what's going to be between each of our pieces. And then you're going to grab a piece, string that on, like so. And then you're going to basically repeat that pattern with all of your pieces or until it is large enough to go around your arm. Now also with these, you have to bear in mind how wide these beads are. This might look a little long for a typical bracelet, but you've also got to take in mind that these are quite wide, and so the bracelet is going to need to be longer because oh gosh, I don't know how to explain this. Basically, because these beads are really thick, your bracelet's going to need to be longer versus the regular length. Sorry, I can't explain it. I'm not sure how I would explain it. But just check before you finish it off to make sure it wraps around your arm nicely. Okay, and then when you're done stringing, I will show you how to finish it off. Okay, so here it is so far. So now I'm just going to go to the one end, snip that so it's nice and clean. Grab one of these cord ends. Again, most of these I get off of Fire Mountain Gems. And I want to squish that closed, like so. Bring this up. Now if you're wondering why this is so long, it's because sometimes I'm not happy with pieces that I make. And so this is actually a repurposed piece of hemp that actually went with a previous project that I just was not very happy with. So that's why it's so long. If you are using a new piece of hemp, make sure to trim it basically just a little bit larger than what you want the project, than what you want the bracelet to be. Squish. And now you might notice I left a little, probably maybe around 1 centimetre to half a centimetre of hemp there, just because it will give the bracelet a bit of flexibility. You don't want this to be rigid, you want it to be nice and flexible. So leave a little bit of extra hemp. And then I'm going to take this and I like to add 2 jump rings. Just grab another plug so I can get in there. There we go. And then on the other side, up. Grab another jump ring. That up and then attach the clasp. You can use any clasp you want and any colour as well if you want. I thought that brass went quite nicely with this project. Okay, make sure you can slip that on easily, and there we go. That's basically the bracelet. So very easy once you know the process. The only painful part of this project would be if you decide to do it by hand, all of that hand sanding. But if you use the Dremel, it really is nice and quick. You can turn out a bunch of these in no time. Also, if you want it to be a little bit smoother and you don't want any streaks on your polymer clay pieces, use a finer grit of sandpaper on your Dremel. Though keep in mind that the finer the sandpaper is, the longer it's going to be to cut those angles. But again, on the Dremel it still should not take too long. And so that's kind of a more tropical take on the effect, but you can see here how you can create a very different effect. So play around with the different stones that you can create. It is basically most effective when you're going for a kind of faux stone tribal effect. So play around with different stones. Check out YouTube and some of my Patreon archives. I've got rose quartz, blue calcite, faux emerald, I do believe. Let's see, I've got, you could also use amber. There's a bunch of different ones that you can look at. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. One important thing to remember when you're doing this is the stone that you're creating, the effect that you use to create the stone. In this case, it would be the kind of chips all smashed together. It needs to be the entire bead. There can't be any core. So something like my faux rhodonite tutorial, that one the effect was not actually through the entire piece, it was just a surface level effect, so something like that won't work for this. Also something like my faux labradorite tutorial, where I used a mixed media effect that if sanded off aggressively will ruin the effect, that also won't work. So generally you need to just have a look at the different stone tutorials that I've done and just make sure that they will work for this technique. If you know that if you sand off a whole lot it's going to ruin it, then it's not really going to work for this technique. Again, you don't even have to do a faux stone. You could also just do plain colours, though I think the faux stone really works quite well. So anyway, I've gone on enough. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please let me know in the comments below. And if you have suggestions for future tutorials, also let me know and I'll look into those. And as always, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.